Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild? This is episode number 13 of Brave the Wild. Today is Wednesday, February the 25th, 2009, and it is great to have you on board once again today. As Brave the Wild is available on the Sports Stuff and iTunes, the sportstuff.com and iTunes. Great to have you on board. As always, thank you for downloading and listening to this show. And please do me a favor and tell a friend about this show as well. As the more, the merrier. And real quick, though, on the sportstuff.com, well, we do have a message boards. That is how we can talk hockey or any other sport on there. You can also vote on my polls for Brave the Wild in the podcasters section of the forums or message boards. I have a new poll for you today. We'll talk about that later on. But first and foremost, click on the button in the upper right-hand corner that says TSS Boards. TSS Boards, click on that. That is how you'll be able to sign up to the boards. It is 100% free and 100% fun. You're more than welcome. Please, Minnesota Wild fans, get on there. We need more of you on there. We need to talk more hockey on the sportstuff.com. So get on there and please join the members of the sportstuff.com. Alrighty. Also, Minnesota.NHLfansite.com. Minnesota.NHLfansite.com, which is a fantastic Minnesota Wild fan site. Very professional and lots of traffic. Nice enough to put a link to Brave the Wild on their website. We're also working on an RSS feed as we speak. So thank you again, Chris, for having me on board there. All right, well, today, plain and simple, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Wild, the 4 games in particular today, starting off with the Calgary Flames and Detroit, Chicago, and Los Angeles. And the one thing that's in common with all 4 of those games, the Minnesota Wild gained at least 1 point in all 4 of those games. So that is pretty exciting indeed. You would have expected at least one of those with no points, but we got a point at least in every single one of them. The Wild at least making it to overtime against Calgary and LA. Unfortunately, I don't know why we lost to LA, but that's just how it goes. For some reason, the Kings always beat us at home. But with no further ado, we're going to take a quick break, and we will get to those reviews after this. Here on the sportstuff.com, get on board the Viking ship with Purple Mafia. We will talk about the new Purple People Eaters and the best running back in the NFL, Adrian Peterson. This team is ready to make a move forward. Purple Mafia is available on the sportstuff.com along with iTunes and MediaFly. Simply download and listen to the most honest and passionate Vikings coverage. And we are back here on Brave the Wild, episode number 13. A reminder for iPod users. Again, thank you for joining me. Alrighty. Well, we got 4 games to review, as mentioned, and first was Thursday, the 19th of February, a home game against the Calgary Flames. This was the game we've all been waiting for. We're going against the division leaders in the Northwest Division. Well, the Minnesota Wild not able to pull this one off. It was Rene Bourque about 3 minutes, 17 seconds into the game. You knew we were in trouble when Rene Bourque was able to put in his 21st goal unassisted. Just right off the bat, pretty much like, oh boy, good luck to us. But luckily, the Calgary Flames unable to do anything after that. The Wild outshot the Calgary Flames in the first period, which was quite impressive, 11-7. So that was good news in that front. Of course, as mentioned, unassisted by Rene Bourque. The Wild play some pretty solid defense, and then about 3 minutes into the second period, Dan Fritchie, with his second goal of the year with the Wild anyway, and that was good news right there. Kim Janssen with the assist. This was shorthanded. Calgary on one of their 2 power plays, as the number 1 penalty kill in the NHL, shuts down the Calgary Flames on only 2 power play attempts. The Wild 0 for 1 in this game, so only 3 power plays in the entire game as a whole. So a very quick game. Not much stoppage of play in particular on this one. Kim Janssen, as mentioned, assisting on Dan Fritchie's second goal. That was short-handed. And then about 4 minutes later, Colton Gillies getting his second goal, assisted by Peter Olevsky. Peter Olivki. Think about that. Those are two guys who really need to get their names in the box score slightly more often. This is their first year with the Minnesota Wild, both rookies. Olivki, of course, older than Colton Gillies. He's been in the system since 2004. Gillies was the draft pick in 2007. But nice to have the big man Gillies doing something. As, of course, he's had limited playing time. Too talented to play in juniors, too young to play in the AHL. So that's why Colton Gillies is here. That's basically what happened. Unfortunately, Dustin Boyd getting his 10th goal of the year, though, about 10 minutes later. Assisted by Corey Sarich. And the Calgary Flames have tied this sucker up. That is not good news. Minnesota, again, outshooting the Calgary Flames in that second period. 13-8. 13-8, the Wild outshoot the Calgary Flames. That was impressive. You gotta like that. Of course, the hated Todd Bertuzzi, member of the Calgary Flames, always a menace to this team, but, well, you got a 2-minute penalty for roughing in the second period, so I'll mention that. That's about the extent of that, though. No fights in this game, believe it or not, between these two rivals. Nicholas Backstrom was okay. Definitely wasn't his night in particular. And that third period, well, a very underwhelming third period. The Minnesota Wild get one shot on goal. One shot on goal. The Calgary Flames get 6. So Nicholas Backstrom doing okay in that front at least. But only one shot on goal. Man, oh man, is that frustrating. Definitely drove a lot of us nuts at the XL Energy Center. Of course, Chief Hawk, who is a frequent poster on the message boards, not necessarily for Brave the Wild, more of the Kansas City Chiefs, he is from Iowa, was in attendance in this game. So I hope you enjoyed that game, Chief Hawk, also known as Jared. Hope you enjoyed it. In case you're listening, too bad the Wild couldn't pull it out. At least we got a point out of it. Yeah, that third period, just an underwhelming third period. Mika Kiprusoff doing his thing as always. He is one of the best goalies in the NHL. And then Adrian Austin getting his 10th goal of the year, 3 minutes 50 seconds into the overtime period. So this game, of course, not getting to the shootout. Todd Bertuzzi, the infamous Todd Bertuzzi, and Robin Reger assisting on that goal. And the Calgary Flames get 2 points. The Wild only get 1, so the Wild gain no ground at the Calgary Flames. But at least we get something. At least we got something out of it, which I pretty much had no confidence in the Wild accomplishing at this particular point in time. Very unfortunate. As I'll return to the whole Calgary-Minnesota thing in a second, or at the end of this segment, or maybe at the end of the show. With that, we're going to go on to the next game. And this one, well, when you look at the schedule with Calgary and Detroit, I know they were home games, but maybe you're lucky to get out of here with 1 point, in both of the games total, right? 1 point total. Like probably going to lose completely on one of them and maybe sneak in 1 point. Well, Owen Nolan gets things started only 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the game with his 16th goal of the year. Owen Nolan with his 16th goal of the year. Did you ever think you'd hear me say that at this point in time? The 36-year-old old man Nolan? Pierre-Marc Richard, who is red hot and was tied at this point in time with Antti Miettinen for the number 2 scorer on the Minnesota Wild this year, believe it or not. So he has pretty much risen all the way from, what was he, like 15th leading scorer to number 2. Very impressive. Marc-Andre Bergeron also chipping in on that assist. Minnesota Wild able to convert a power play, as they were 1 for 3 in the power play in this game. The Detroit Red Wings 0 for 5, so the Wild penalty kill impressive again, as they continue to shut down everybody on the penalty kill. And Owen Nolan, about halfway through the first period, gets his second goal of the game and his 17th of the year. And, of course, this was on the power play. Eric Belanger and Brent Burns, or Eric Belanger, as I like to say, assisting on this particular one, as the improving Wild power play gets it done there. And, folks, Owen Nolan, with that 17th goal, is the leading goal scorer on the Minnesota Wild. Yes, Owen Nolan is the leading goal scorer on the Minnesota Wild. Mikko Koivu has 16. What do you think of that, folks? What do you think of that? That is pure insanity. The leading goal scorer, though, Koivu has 55 points. He's the leader in that area. And of course, this was Nolan's 30th point of the year. And man, it couldn't have come at a better time. Gotta love that. Owen Nolan, just very impressive that he was able to accomplish this. Detroit, early in the second period, Thomas Kopecky, if I'm saying it right, Ville Leano, and Kirk Maltby, factoring in on Kopecky's third goal of the year. Detroit getting back into things, and it's like, here we go again. Well, but Pierre-Marc Bouchard and Martin Skula, both scoring about a minute apart. Pierre-Marc Bouchard with his 14th goal of the year, and there's Owen Nolan's 30th point. My bad. Owen Nolan assisting on Bouchard's goal. Skula assisted by Koivu and Miettinen only a minute later. And folks, it's 4-1 Minnesota Wild. Who saw that coming? And now, in the third period, Ville Leano getting his 4th goal of the year, just to try to hope Detroit has a slight chance of getting back in this thing, making it 4-2. Detroit, we know how they are, and they were in striking distance. But none of the big names factoring in for the Detroit Red Wings in this particular night. None of them. Brian Rafalski and Daniel Cleary. All I remember about Daniel Cleary is he was the guy that got, he got a puck in the throat on a slap shot against the Philadelphia Flyers years ago. Luckily, he's still around, still playing. That was about 6-7 years ago already, believe it or not. But that's about it. Brian Rafalski's a pretty good player. Other than that, though, all those big names, nothing on this particular day. So that was good news overall. The Wild, though, as a whole, put up 28 shots versus Detroit's 35. Detroit, 16 shots on goal in that second period. So that was the scary part. 13-7 in the third period, Detroit winning the shots on goal. They also won the faceoffs, 27-17. Detroit always seems to win faceoffs. The Minnesota Wild, well, they're about the 26th rated team in faceoffs won in the NHL. So that continues to be a frustrating aspect. But the Wild won the hockey game. Stefan Veilleux getting his seventh goal of the year, empty net to put things away with only 2 seconds remaining, making it 5-2 and sending the Minnesota Wild, or the Detroit Red Wings home with a disappointing loss. And Jimmy Howard was in the net on this particular day. I'll also remind you, Jimmy Howard, a very little-known goalie for the Detroit Red Wings. This is probably their biggest weakness, as Chris Osgood's numbers not too impressive. Jimmy Howard only played his 9th game of his career, his 7th start. He was a second-round pick in 2003 by the Red Wings, but in 2003. So overall, he has not really lived up to the hype for them. When you take a goalie in the second round, you expect something out of it. Like Josh Harding was a second-round pick in 2002. He's been okay. Not bad at all. You look at his numbers. That was just the way it goes, though, and then this thing happens. As Jimmy Howard's only played, this was his only start of the year, actually. And, of course, giving up 4 goals. Save percentage, 85. In the previous year as well, he was 0-2 last year. 0-2, that's it. Played 4 overall games. Goals against average, .213. Not bad there. And the previous year, 2 years before that, 2005-06, his first ever games, he played 4 games in the net for Detroit. His goals against average about 3 and save percentage 90. So pretty mediocre there. Detroit's only weakness is probably their goaltenders, but they have so many talented scorers and talented defensemen, including the legendary Chris Chelios, who is still playing, unbelievable, and the even more legendary Nicholas Lidstrom, who's just about the best defenseman of all time. He's up there with Bobby Orr. Just legend. Other than that, I don't know. That's just how it goes. Bobby Orr and Ray Bourque. So we'll just leave it at that. Minnesota Wild with an unexpected, impressive victory. And even more impressive was the fact that the Minnesota Wild, on a back-to-back at Chicago. Of course, the Blackhawks, as we all know, they have emerged this year. On February the 22nd, Sunday the 22nd, the Minnesota Wild defeat the Chicago Blackhawks 2-1. That was beautiful. Now, Josh Harding was the starting goalie in net, and we all know what seems to happen with Josh Harding, right? When he's in net, he'll face about 40 shots. He'll stop maybe all but 2 of them, and the Wild will lose 2-1, or 2-0, or 1-0, right? That's just always the way it seems to go with Josh Harding. He'll have an awesome game, but he'll come up with nothing. Not tonight. Not tonight, as Herb Brooks would say, not tonight. Jonathan Hughes with his 22nd goal of the year, assisted by Martin Havlet and Patrick Kane, all known names for the Chicago Blackhawks, literally at the halfway point of the game. As there was no goals in the first period, the Blackhawks putting up 18 shots on goal in the first period to the Wild's 5. Definitely an indicator that the Wild were in big trouble, and poor Josh Harding, good chance he was going to get screwed, right? Pretty good chance that was going to happen. Second period, very, very, very entertaining. Of course, Jonathan Hughes getting that 22nd goal, right, about halfway into the game, and it's like, yeah, we're screwed. The Wild actually outshot the Blackhawks 13-12 in the second period. Very rare feat there. Now here's something that was even more rare. Dan Fritchie getting his 3rd goal of the year on the power play. Pierre-Marc Bouchard and Brent Burns assisting there. Now Bouchard shot the puck on goal, or pretty much on goal, and Dan Fritchie had his stick in the air and directed the puck in the net, right? Well, the Blackhawks goalie, who in this case was Hewitt, put his stick up saying, hey, that's high sticking, and of course the Blackhawks coach was flipping out as the goal counted after review, after like a pause for review. The goal counted, and the Minnesota Wild able to tie this thing up. It was very hard to call, to be honest. I'm not going to be able to make judgment on this one, but I remember the coach of the Blackhawks just flipping out. Quenneville just just losing it. Couldn't believe it. But hey, I don't know. I can't make judgment on this one. We'll take it. The Minnesota Wild needs some luck to go their direction once in a while, right? The Wild overall 1-6 on the power play. Nothing special, but hey, that was about as big a goal all year right there. And Dan Fritchie factoring in on that one. The acquisition for Eric Reitz, who of course goes to the New York Rangers, or went to the New York Rangers. And the Minnesota Wild shut out another team on the power play, 0-7. So you can tell this Minnesota Wild team is playing better hockey right now. I mean, it's plain as day that they are playing better hockey right now. Look at that, 0-7 against the Blackhawks. Very impressive. The Wild as a whole, though, in the third period, well, they were outshot 15-6. As the Blackhawks were coming at them frantically, thinking they're going to put away the Josh Harding, they're going to get Harding to fold, and this thing would be done. Thankfully, that was not the case. Overall, the Minnesota Wild, though, defeated in the face-off category once again, 27-23. Chicago winning in the face-off category. Wild virtually never win in that one. But here was the cool part. Peter Olewski, 3 minutes and 30 seconds into the first period, getting his first and career goal right there. Definitely a career type of goal for Peter Olewski. Only his first goal of his career, and it was a beauty as the Minnesota Wild are able to take a 2-1 lead at this point in time. The go-ahead goal, which went on to be the winning goal. Couldn't think of a better time for Peter Olewski to score his first goal of his career. And Martin Skula getting another very rare point, and Eric Belanger factoring in there. The third line is what this appeared to be at this point in time. The third line for the Minnesota Wild. Just huge. Very exciting. That makes Olewski the number 2 star of the game. Number 1 star, though, was Josh Harding, who finally was able to get a well-deserved victory in a game that he played fantastic. He stood on his head against an outstanding team who faced 45 shots and stopped 44 of the Chicago Blackhawks shots. Outstanding job by Josh Harding. I couldn't have been happier for him. He deserved this so much. I mean, look at his numbers. It was only his second win of the year. He is 2-7, 9 starts, 14 games overall. Goals against average of only 2.14. It's about almost a whole goal. That's about 0.8 goals less than last season. And he started 25 games last year, did Harding. No shutout this year. He got 1 last year. His save percentage is 93%. So it's about time he got a win like that where he was the absolute star of the game. So congratulations to Josh Harding. I made absolute sure to put that on the boardsstuff.com in the Minnesota Wild section. And, well, not many hockey fans on the sportstuff.com in this current time, so we need more of you out there, because not many people were responding to that post. We need more of you out there. I'd love to see you respond on there. Could talk some more Minnesota Wild on there. So just thought I'd get that across. 2 days later, on the 24th, Tuesday the 24th, February 2009, the Minnesota Wild host the LA Kings. And for like the 99 millionth time, the Minnesota Wild lose a home game against the Los Angeles Kings. I just can't stand it. I can't believe how many times the Wild lose to the LA Kings. Luckily, it was in the shootout and not in regulation, so the Wild sneak in another point. So that's okay, I guess. But again, this is the Los Angeles Kings, a non-playoff team. So that, of course, is very frustrating. Patrick O'Sullivan had 4 shots on goal. I think I'll bring that up. He was one of 3 LA Kings to get 4 shots on goal. He wants to stick it to the Minnesota Wild, former Minnesota Wild defenseman and first ever captain, Sean O'Donnell, of course, a member of the LA Kings. Sean O'Donnell still going strong at age 37. Amazing. On that front, John Quick, the goalie of the LA Kings, facing 24 shots from the Wild, Backstrom facing 25. So it was pretty even in that front. And, of course, the Wild lose in faceoffs again, 29-22. They get creamed in the faceoff category. And the Wild give up their first power play in a long time. The Kings were 1-5. And that goal was scored by Jack Jackson, but I'll get to that later. Antti Miettinen scored the first goal of the game about 6 minutes into the second period. His 13th goal of the year, Mikko Koivu assisting there. Fantastic. So during the penalty kill, the Wild get something done. Very cool there. Antti Miettinen factoring in. And that also now makes him the number 2 leading scorer on the Minnesota Wild, assisted by the leading scorer of the Wild. It's 55th point, Mikko Koivu. So that's cool. But then Jack Johnson, whoever that is, right? Getting his 3rd goal of the year. And that was that power play goal. It was unassisted. Awfully frustrating there. The Kings tie it up with about 5 minutes to go in the second period. The Minnesota Wild outshot the Kings 8-7 in the second period. The LA Kings outshoot the Wild 9-5 in the third, but nobody able to score in a fairly unexciting third period. The two teams that just, it's like neither team wanted to lose, basically. You know, they weren't really playing to win. They just didn't want to lose. The Wild put 3 shots on goal in the overtime period. The Kings only get 1 shot on goal, so that was good on the Wild side. But unfortunately, nothing was accomplished there. So now we head to the shootout. Kopitar for the Kings is stopped. Zidlicky is stopped. Jack Johnson scores again. Koivu misses. Patrick O'Sullivan stopped, thank God. Imagine Patrick O'Sullivan burying us there, thank God. Antti Miettinen saves us on he had to score, and he does. Stops us, but unfortunately, the next attempt by the LA Kings, Drew Doughty is able to score, and Brent Burns is stopped by John Quick, and that'll do it, folks. LA Kings escape with 2 points. The Wild only 1. Patrick O'Sullivan, of course, the number 3 star of the game, Cal Clutterbuck, number 2, who not only leads NHL rookies in hits, he leads the NHL in hits, folks. Cal Clutterbuck is now the NHL leader in hits. That is amazing. That's crazy how much he has emerged. That guy likes to knock people around just a little bit, doesn't he? Just a little. As, of course, you remember, he did not start the season with the Minnesota Wild. With the injuries to Gaborik and others, Owen Nolan, Cal Clutterbuck, I believe it was Owen Nolan because they wanted another tough guy, was able to emerge, and that was fantastic. Koivu, the number 1 star of the game, overall, played a fantastic game, but it wasn't enough for the Minnesota Wild. And Owen Nolan, who scored 2 goals the previous game, noticeably missing on this particular day because he broke a toe. Owen Nolan has a fractured toe, and that is unfortunate as your leading goal scorer, Owen Nolan, unavailable and is day-to-day. So that is frustrating. He has had some nagging injuries, has Owen Nolan. We're going to take us a quick break. We're going to look some more at some of the Wild's numbers, and we'll also discuss the newest poll in the podcast section right after this. Here on the sportstuff.com, we're bursting in blue with Timberwolves Explosion. Timberwolves fans, your show has arrived at last as we bring in a new era with Al Jefferson, Kevin Love, and Mike Miller. We're available on the sportstuff.com and also available on iTunes. Download and listen to in-depth and detailed coverage of your favorite team. Show your true blue and join this explosion of Timberwolves basketball. And we are back here on Brave the Wild, episode number 13, a reminder for iPod users. Well, real quick, we're going to look at some of the numbers for your Minnesota Wild. Now notice how efficient Owen Nolan has been in only 38 games, 30 points for Owen Nolan. I'll also remind or bring up that Andrew Brunette missed the games against the Detroit Red Wings and the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Wild won both of them, so you gotta like that. That was cool, but unfortunately, Andrew Brunette's streak comes to an end, so no more streak. Andrew Brunette's just gonna have to start a new one, unfortunately, at age 35. So that is the deal with Andrew Brunette. He turns 36 on August 24th. So that is a little trivia there. Andrew Brunette is having to start off from scratch on his Ironman streak. He was the leader in the NHL in that category. That is too bad, but it's great to have him back with the Wild. Unfortunately, Owen Nolan has not had a streak like that. And if he did, this guy, Owen Nolan, might have 50 points right now the way he's playing. I'm just so impressed with Owen Nolan at his age. Marek Zedlicki has gotten a little quieter, 29 points in 54 games. Belanger, 29 points as well. He's been okay. Brent Burns, a little quieter than last year, 24 points in 55 games. So that is something of note right there. Teams factoring in a little bit on that. It's been a long time since Cal Clutterbuck has factored in the box score. That's another thing I have noticed as well. Miettinen a little bit quieter. Mikko Koivu, the overall best player, most consistent guy, everything. But there's so much pressure on Mikko Koivu to lead this team right now because Owen Nolan is the leading goal scorer. Think about that. Think about that. You don't have Gaborik. You don't have Mark Parrish actually playing up to his potential when he was here. You don't have a true goal scorer on this team, and that is most unfortunate. So Mikko Koivu, definitely the true star of this team with 39 assists, leading the charge for your Minnesota Wild. Unfortunately, there really isn't much to talk about regarding background information in this particular time. I mean, there hasn't really been much going on. Not much from Craig Leopold. Absolutely nothing regarding any type of trade rumor at this point in time, as the trade deadline is coming up very soon, as March is almost upon us. Nothing regarding Marian Gaborik. Nothing regarding anybody else. No talk about Jacques Lemaire wanting to step down or if his job's in jeopardy, which we know it isn't because Craig Leopold has constantly talked about consistency and just to keep things going forever. Basically, he had the same coach and same GM in all 9 years of his ownership of the Nashville Predators. So that is where things stand with the Minnesota Wild. Nothing exciting either going on with the Houston Aeros at this point in time. All we know is that Benoit Pouliot is playing better than he was earlier in the year with the Minnesota Wild. Very bad with the Wild. He's starting to kind of figure out some little knickknacks of the game and playing more solid. As we know, last year in Houston, he struggled. Very similar to Danny Ehrman right now, who still has only 9 points. That sucks. That is about 50 games and 9 points for Danny Ehrman, the former Minnesota Wild star. Or Minnesota Golden Gophers star. So with that, we're going to move on to the poll here really quick. It is a very simple one, front and center. Sportstuff.com, podcaster section, Brave the Wild. Now this is about as simple a poll as there is, but it's the main thing on a lot of our minds right now. Will the Wild make the playoffs? Yes or no? Will the Wild make the playoffs? Yes or no? Go down there, sign up for the message boards, and vote on the polls. And please feel free to make a comment as to why you believe they might make it or why you believe they won't make it. I personally, at this point in time, am saying no. They are not consistent enough, and their star player, Mikko Koivu, well, he's all they got. He's all they got. Owen Nolan can't stay healthy. He continuously seems to get nagging injuries. Andrew Brunette has been hurt all year. He is beyond Iron Man. He is insanely Iron Man to think that he has missed 2 games this entire season. As you can just hear it in his voice, he is just, he's constantly hurt, and that's too bad. I'm just happy he's not hurt, seriously bad where he flat can't play, like Gaborik, like every friggin' year. But you get the idea. Andrew Brunette is frustrated. It's not been the same for old Andy, and we're just gonna have to see what happens there. The defensemen, well, we have better defensemen in terms of the power play. Our power play has improved because of Zidlicky and Bergeron, but not enough. Not enough. Something is missing, and that would be, unfortunately, a guy like a Brian Ralston, who is a 30-goal scorer, and we do not have that anymore for obvious reasons. So I'm just going to have to leave it at that. I wasn't a huge fan of Brian Ralston because I thought he'll score goals, but never when you need him. Never when you need him, like on the shootout or maybe on a breakaway late in the game. Always seem to screw up in that type of situation. Whereas a guy like Brunette usually seems to succeed in that type of situation, along with Mikko Koivu and, believe it or not, Owen Nolan. So I guess that's where we stand right now with the Minnesota Wild. I like the improved play, but I'm not buying it just yet. So we'll just have to hope that this team continues its solid play, and just maybe they will make the playoffs. As believe it or not, right now, the Wild are the 7th seed, but they are only about 8 points away from being 13th. 13th means you are way out of there. Means you are getting like the 8th overall pick. I wouldn't mind that too bad either. So we're just going to have to see what happens there. Thanks again for listening. Go Wild. We'll just see how this next week fares. Take care.